All right, guys, welcome to class. How's everyone doing this evening? Pretty good? If you are, you can give me a little thumbs up emoji.
Doing good.
Awesome. All right, very cool. Ooh, been running back and forth all day, guys. So I am glad that you're here. Glad everyone's getting connected. And let's talk a little bit about what we have going on this evening, because I'm eager to kind of get back into the background design phase today. So let me go ahead and take a moment to kind of open up a couple of files here. Before we move forward, just one quick announcement. Tomorrow, October 22nd, we are set and ready to go over at the Nixon in the city of Whittier. I guess it's like the Nixon background. I forget the name. It's like the Nixon, was like restaurant garden, I think it's known as. Tomorrow night. So if you've already signed up, then it's still on. Manny is still confirmed to participate, and he's going to take a moment to kind of step outside and talk with us a little bit about his journey. He is a great artist, and he's a freelance designer / ice cream entrepreneur. So if you've ever been to the Nixon restaurant sort of gardens, he's like the only ice cream vendor there. But he incorporates his art into his brand. So he took his freelance studio, turned it into kind of like a ice cream brand, and the guy just likes to do different things, and you never know what he's up to at one point or another. So we have that information. If you still want to join us, send me a direct message, and I'll give you the address. But everyone should have that address, and just come by and say hello, talk, let's catch up. You know, you can ask me and Manny any questions, but I think it'll be a really cool sort of informal conversation about design, art, you know, specifically within the city of Whittier, and all those really cool things that are a part of it. So I'll definitely send it out to you, and I'll put it into the chat as soon as we get rolling with some of our files. So it's basically it's not the Nixon Steakhouse, although it's across the street from it. So I'll send that over to you in just a few minutes, and then you can take a look at that as well. Okay, so definitely looking forward to seeing you guys in person, and it'll be fun. It'll be definitely a good time, and we're going for a couple hours from 6 to 8 o'clock. Okay, so and of course Manny will be there. If you eat right before, I'll spring some ice creams for you. How about that? We'll get you guys some soft serves, and it should be lots of fun. All right, so let's hop in. So a couple things tonight, guys. This evening, I want to talk about background images for your t-shirts, and specifically around the area of how to basically kind of reverse backwards when it comes to your art. And I want to pull the keynote up. That is not the screen we want. We want the keynote file. Okay. And there we go. That's the one we want. Perfect. So tonight we're going to try to echo the art style and edit background images into your focal image or focal point of your t-shirt design. Okay. So up to this point, we pretty much are developing or in the process of developing a image for Mickey. Or your character that you've been pre-approved to move forward with and redraw. But I just kind of want to overview a little bit of the background image so that we can kind of see how that works and how it kind of develops and pieces together from there. Okay, so we're going to look at that for a few moments. And really at the end of the day, there's really a couple of ways that we can actually build that, build the graphic up, right? One way is obviously like sourcing an image, drawing an image, and you can bring it into Illustrator, in which you sort of trace or redraw with the pen tool. That's basically like the primary or one of the easier ways I've seen it flow from a beginner standpoint. And then the second way is that you can actually find existing files or vector files in what they call like these vector repositories, which are a series of sites that store images for you. And we're actually going to take a look at some backgrounds through the repository or number 2 option there, and see what it looks like to find an image, download an image, and integrate it into your design. Okay. So we did the tracing of the image, and we'll continue to do that. Now we're just going to basically sort of find images, find backgrounds. It's sort of integrated within the graphic in and of itself. Okay. And so we're going to kind of piece that together and see how that sort of flows, how it works. And you can also bring that into your project, or draw the background if you feel comfortable drawing that background, but this is just an option to kind of add to the background. Okay. And we were kind of saying before that when we look at t-shirt design principles, as we were analyzing it on Tuesday, like the Johnny Cupcakes t-shirt we did, we mentioned that there is a principle, which is your foreground, middle ground, background image, right? T-shirts are a lot like these sort of posters or these dimensional sort of objects where you can say so much in your graphic and in your image and make a statement. And but there's still some elements of design, principles of design that still go into play when it comes to developing it, right? And we still see principles of design happening within a t-shirt because it is referencing from like poster designs, and that's graphic design at the end of the day. But when things have like a middle ground or foreground and background, or sometimes foreground, middle ground, background, but basically this concept of something in the front, something behind, right? That's depth, that's dimension, and it's going to make your design just look more interesting. And anything that looks three-dimensional on a two-dimensional object, paper or fabric like a t-shirt, is always going to look interesting. Tote bag, fashion bag, anything that looks dimensioned in some way or creating an environment of sorts within your graphic is always going to look interesting. Creating a world, for lack of a better term, right? And so that could be done in so many different ways, right? Whether it's like a character that has a lot of imagery built into it, or within the environment to which the character sits. Does that make sense? So basically creating like a foreground, background image is at the heart of it. So we're just going to kind of build that. But the other thing too is that we're going to echo the art style. And echoing the art style basically means that if I took, if I'm looking at my three images here of Mickey, Tootsie, and Popeye, they're all similar in style, right? They're flat, right? There's no shading typically when it comes to them, by shading like major gradations and things of that sort. They're basically like flat two-dimensional cartoon characters, right? And so when we're building this, and where you're building your t-shirt, think about echoing the styles across the whole design, because really what that is at the end of the day is harmony. Okay, and if you guys remember harmony is all about things that are really similar. Similar lines, similar shapes, similar colors, similar values or shadings. These are all things that can go into the design. So when we're building your graphic, think about art style or and how they all kind of put into play. And really it really comes down to harmony. Think about harmony. Think about how all the elements are looking similar. And we will throw in variety, that one thing that's different, but we're going to bring some harmony into the design. Okay. So we're going to jump in, and I'm basically going to work with number 2 process here. And I'm going to switch over and open up my Adobe Illustrator program just to kind of walk you through this process. Okay. And I'll open up our lovely graphic here, which is going to be, let me switch over here for just a quick second. I'm going to open up Adobe Illustrator and put it on screen so that you guys can see it. Move that out of the way. And we want advanced pencil exercise. And I'll use that Mickey, the more completed Mickey graphic there. So I'm just going to open that. Oh, no, it's not that one. Advanced pencil exercise. There it goes. We won't use this one. We'll use the alternate Mickey graphic here for that one. Okay. And I'm gonna open up my Canvas system here for a second. And inside Canvas, you have the links that I provided to you, which is the repository. So let's go to Canvas. And when we switch over to Canvas, and go over to Student View, because it should be Student View. Here we go. I'm going to scroll down to week 8 and 9, t-shirt graphics and production ready files. And chances are we're still in the first week, so I think we'll be on time for next week for week 9. But I'm going to go over to the assignment page, and I'm going to pull up my annotation tool here. And I'm going to click on to assignment fashion inspired Disney t-shirt. And what's nice about this is that I went on ahead and supplied you the information. So we have the vector t-shirt template here that we're going to download. And I briefly showed that last session of how we're going to download our graphic. And then I also give you a series of free vector repositories or databases that have a lot of really cool and interesting vector images and backgrounds that you can pull from your bag of tricks and add it to your own toolkit. So there's a lot of really cool ones here. I'll just kind of give you a quick rundown of each of them. One of them is Free Pick, which is basically graphic design resources. So it's very similar to Adobe offering their free repository. But on the internet, there's actually some free versions that are out there too, of different images, backgrounds, from Photoshop to Photoshop documents, Photoshop files to photos, to vector images or Illustrator files. And they're all available for you to edit and modify and set up, because the artists that created them are giving them free to designers, as long as they as a way to share their name, get their name out there, and maybe get some additional commissions for projects, work, and illustrations. And so FreePick has some interesting ones and some pretty cool ones, and I see a few of them that could potentially work for a background image or a project, but I always want them to match my art style of Mickey. So those are pretty cool. That's looking kind of interesting. The second one is Vecteezy, and Vecteezy is, let's take a look, should be loading. Oh, did it actually not give it to me? Oh, look at that. I have to make a quick modification to the Vecteezy file. No worries, I have Vecteezy over here. And Vecteezy is also similar. It's a database of images, vector files, Photoshop graphics. I'll make the change onto Canvas because it seems like I doubled up on the link twice, although last semester no one mentioned that. But you can find really cool resources as well for templates, images, and graphics. Things right down from 80s retro, which appears to be trending this week in the site, to templates for cell phones, to autumn related things. So that's actually kind of where I want to go tonight, is I want to try to create like a Halloween theme t-shirt graphic for Mickey, and see what I can pull from my bag of tricks there. Okay, so there's that one, and I'll probably end up in Vecteezy tonight. Then there's Undraw and .co, which is more specific. It gives you like more specialized type of images in relation to technology or related words and minimal, and the list goes on, because a lot of these companies are now getting to a point where they're offering like very specific styles in their databases. So like where the last two databases were like Photoshop and Vector and all these other ones. Now we have sites appearing in these last few years that are very specific to a certain art style. And this is a good example of echoing the art style, right? Like you see how everything is like minimal, clean, sort of side profile, very no detailing in the face, right? They all echo art styles. They all have similar colors. We're starting to see a lot more of these projects show up, and this site would be more specific towards like web or mobile, which follows those styles. But there's still SVG or vector files or vector graphic formatted files. They could still be open in Adobe Illustrator, so that could offer some opportunities for you too. So that's nice to have, and that's some resources there for you that you can potentially pull from. They have a cool little controller here for gaming, and that could, and we can always edit out characters and use elements or products or objects from the artwork if that's necessary too. So that's really a cool resource that I found. And then Free Pick started catching up on that theme, and they said, oh, well, we all, if that's the trend, if that's what a lot of companies are offering, specific theme or art styles, then we're going to do that, and we're going to call it story sets. And so story sets are pretty much the same thing as Undraw, where they offer very specific styles, and then you can choose your style, and then they give you like sub themes or additional themes related to those styles, right? So we're starting to see a lot of overlap between between styles or echoing art styles in these sites. And again, flat, two-dimensional, a little isometric here and there, or angled, so to speak, right? And sort of like these sort of, warm or green sort of tones that we see happening with the colorway. So these are really big nowadays, and everything always follows a trend. So we have those available for you as well, okay? So we're just gonna take a look at that background setup, and I'll actually land on Vecteezy tonight, because I've always liked Vecteezy typically. And there's already a couple things that kind of look interesting to me that I could potentially pull into the graphic. Things like this sort of like pumpkin spice latte coffee cup looks somewhat interesting to me. Maybe because I'm like craving coffee right now, who knows, but there's that. So I'll just kind of right click and create a new tab for that just to have it on the side. But I'm definitely gonna type in Halloween in the search key, okay? And I'll put it in the chat too, so then that way, if you wanna kind of like take a look at some of the images, you can. I'll put that graph in the system there in just a few moments. And I'll just type in from the subset here, like Halloween background, and let the system kind of do its magic. And already I'm starting to see some interesting things here already, but I'm thinking to myself, what could echo the art style for my Mickey graphic, right? What could be something that I could potentially work with in that graphic? Sometimes I have to kind of go back to Illustrator and sort of examine it one more time. Sometimes I like to have like both windows open on my screen. So I always like to kind of see, go back and look at Mickey. Okay, he's kind of vintage, he's flat, he's sitting down in this side. And then I'm sort of thinking to myself, okay, well, what could be a potential solution from here, using some, basic editing skills and things of that sort. And let's take a look here. And there's some good ones. I think the haunted house one could potentially work for us. And I'm just kind of seeing if there's anything else that's new or working within the graphic. That's kind of setting it up there. And again, just kind of thinking about the graphic and for Mickey and seeing how things kind of flow here. And take a look. I'm like very curious about always like the new art per year. So it's always, no, not that one. Let it upload for just a couple of seconds. Okay. I'm kind of drawn to this ghost one here, just because it's super cute and a little bit editable there. So I think we can use that. I'm gonna download this image and download that with a free license. It takes about 5 seconds to load or download. And I should see on the lower left-hand side a zip folder that's downloaded. So I'm going to click onto that zip folder. And zip is basically, for those that don't know, is basically like a compressed or kind of locked away file that is basically a folder, and it's zipped away or stored, and you have to click onto it for it to open into a folder. Okay. And sure enough, as I take a look at my folder, I'll share my screen here so you can kind of see what it looks like on screen. But basically the folder kind of looks like this, where you get multiple file formats here, right? One format is an EPS file, and that EPS file is basically sort of like a universal file for Adobe Illustrator. The fancy word is encapsulated postscript, which basically means that just about any version of Illustrator can open up that program, and any other vector program that is not Adobe can open it. It's a friendly version of the file to be open in other programs, right? Non-branded or non-Illustrator versions, right? And then below that is the JPEG, which is basically a photo. So that I know because it says .jpg, and a .jpg is basically just a photo or image, just to make sure you know that what your file looks like is what is in the photo. And then there's some license information there too, which talks a little bit about how you're going to use the graphic when you're producing it, and it has license information as well, which is more like on the copyright level, right? And there's a lot of legalities that are built into it, and basically they're saying it's free license, but please mention the creator or link back to the site so that other people can find that file. Okay, and so we'll talk a little bit about copyright infringement later, but the file that we want is the EPS file, .eps. So I'm basically going to right-click it, and I can say right-click, open with Adobe Illustrator, or I can go to Adobe Illustrator, and I can basically say open the file, or I can double-click onto the file itself, click, and it should identify as EPS, but sometimes it might open up the wrong program like it did for me, and it's EPS file. So now I have to really get specific and open it up in Adobe Illustrator. So let's go ahead and do that. That's a good example here. Okay, I'm gonna go back to Adobe Illustrator. Okay, and let's go to my desktop one so we can see the whole screen. And right here on Adobe Illustrator, I'm basically going to open it up by clicking onto the File menu, color. I'm going to go to File, Open, and I'm going to look for that file that's downloaded in my Downloads folder. Okay, so on the left, Downloads. I'm going to open up the top selection here, which is Vecteezy Halloween Cute Pumpkin. Double click. I have my EPS image here, so that's the EPS file that I want. And I'm going to click open on the lower right. And if everything works out, scale the symbols, yep. I should see the file or the program open. And if I zoom out, there it is right there. Okay, so how do I know that's the program? Well, if I click onto these elements, They look vector. If I go to view menu, outline mode, that is definitely vector lines or paths. And when I click onto them, those definitely look like paths in and of themselves, right? Those are anchor points. So for this program, depending on the format, probably the best thing for everyone is to basically go to File, Open, and locate where your file is after you unzip it. So you have to double click it to open the folder. Sometimes it could be a single file, but just know that File Open will convert it for you automatically. And you may have to zoom in or zoom out and basically select over the image to kind of see what is editable. Okay, so I have my image here and that's looking pretty cool. I'm basically going to select it, kind of like what we did when we selected our basic and complicated shapes exercise. And I'm basically gonna select the whole thing with the selection tool and say edit, copy. Okay, click onto my graphic design pen tool exercise. And I'm just basically gonna go edit and paste it in there. Not to design onto it, but really just to look at the character art and see if the art looks somewhat identical, okay? Stylistically, okay? And just based on what I'm seeing here, do these art styles match? I would say, I would ask you guys as a class. Or does the art styles echo, yes or no? Go ahead and type in the chat what you think about that. Like, do these art styles echo? And if they do, or if they don't, let's get specific. Why do you think they don't echo? And by echo, meaning similar lines, shapes, like think of your art elements and tell me why they don't necessarily harmonize per se, would you say? Okay. And harmony always goes back to art elements, line, shape, color, value, right? Organic form, organic shapes, brightness, darkness. But why don't they echo? And there's multiple reasons, but go ahead and type in maybe one thing that you're noticing that's not echoing in this image, okay? Lydia says, doesn't have any shading, but the ghost and the pumpkin have shading. Okay, that's good. Referring to the shadows. So this in the lower right-hand side, we see this sort of shading element happening here. So I'm glad you guys are picking it up. That's a sharp eye you guys are you're pulling up there. Line width is another factor too. Okay, so that might have to be modified depending. Okay, the eyes are very, very different. Okay, different stroke widths, 2D versus like 3D as well. Okay, good. Okay, so then what could be some possible solutions then? Like, what could we do to try to echo the art style? Or is it just too much to begin with? Because that's even possible too, right? Like, hey, professor, this might not even work per se. So maybe, but do we modify? How would we modify? Okay, Alexa says, edit the line sizes, change colors, delete the shadows, cartoon shades. Okay, let's try that. We'll do the shading first. I'm gonna click onto my white arrow direct selection tool, click on the shadow and delete that and delete those directly. See what that looks like. Okay. Certain shades, okay. So I made that modification. Let's take a look here. What else was mentioned? We said the colors. So the line width or the line colors need to be changed too. So let's go ahead and flip it. Maybe we'll go to the ghost here. And I'm gonna zoom in, and with my direct selection tool, okay, I'm going to directly select that shape, or I can go to my selection tool and select that specific image. And I'm noticing where my color, where my fill color is, that is pretty much the exact same color as the outline, right? So it's registering as sort of like this brown, dark brown. So if I double click onto my color here, click, then I can basically say, hey, let's move this down to like a black, which is on the lower left. Click OK, change that color, click onto the circle and the mouth, click, bring it down to black, click OK to that. And we'll do the same for the pumpkin. Oh, looks like its little twirl there is black. So I'm gonna hold down the Shift key and multi-select. And I'm gonna use the tip of my arrow to select the outline of the pumpkin. Change that to black. Double click, bring that down, black. Oh, looks like I missed a few elements here. So this designer definitely brought some specific pieces in the mix. Double click. Oh, I missed a couple, I can already tell. Click OK to that. Some over here, there's some over there. Double click, bring that down to lower right, black. Whoop. And if I drag over the whole thing, well, no, I'm not even gonna drag and move. I really wanna get some pieces here. So there's a few elements there that are floating around that I need to definitely try to select and get. That are hiding behind one element or another. So let's try this one. Let's really zoom in and see if I can click onto that. So that looks sort of like a muddy sort of brown. Let's see if I can switch that over to more of a blackish tone. And even zoom in there to do that. You could technically even go to your layers panel too, guys. And when I click onto the layers panel, because I copy and pasted the ghost, all those paths or all those objects are subpaths, right? That's a lot of paths to kind of narrow down, but you could, if it's a very basic sort of shape and not too complicated, you could technically even try to narrow down and look for those individual paths themselves, and then definitely have those sort of selected, or you can sort of highlight them to locate them and make modifications that way too, or move them up, and then you can make those changes too. So there's that, that's even like a potential option there as well. If you want to make some changes to the layers through the layers panel, I think the less complicated, the better. For this one, it's just a little bit easier just to select and then change those colors individually. Okay, which could take a couple of minutes. So we can change it manually that way. Okay, the other way that we can also select all those colors at one time, and this is kind of going into our tools, so let me see if I can delete shadow, is that if I want to get the same color, which is all these sort of browns working in the graphic, I could technically go to my magic wand tool, which is represented by the letter Y. And you can see here where the red arrow is pointing a little bit, that there is what looks like a wand. And then that wand has like these three little stars there, right? Now, the magic wand is really cool because it kind of takes the same concept from Photoshop, if you're familiar with Photoshop, which is basically, if I click onto the magic wand, I'll get this little wand symbol that's floating around here. So it kind of looks like this sort of wand with three stars at the tip. And wherever that little tip of that wand clicks on, let's say I want to click onto this same color, which is the sort of mauve or burgundy color. Look what happens when I click onto it. In one click, the system says, hey, you want all those sort of red outlines, don't you? Yeah, I do. And it sort of selects it all at one time. So Magic Wand saves you the time of clicking into individual paths, and it'll basically say, oh, that color or that line weight, you want this? Yeah, okay, here it is, boom. And just like magic, get it? It selects the whole thing for you. And now you can instantly double click onto your fill tool and then change that all to black within seconds, right? Versus like the minute or two it took me to kind of make those changes. So that's a really helpful tool outside of the pen tool, because I know we can live in the pen tool for a while. So that's a helpful tool to have too. So Magic Wand is really cool. We like that. We're big fans of that as well. And some of the shading is still kind of eluding. So I'll use my direct selection tool to select some of the shading there. That's really bare. So I do want at least some solid happening in here, but I can maybe use my direct selection tool to specifically select those sort of colors or tones of those shadows even further and delete that and get a little bit closer to my Mickey. And now it's looking a bit closer to that. Although the ghost and the weight of that is a little bit thicker. With direct selection, I think we're gonna definitely, let's delete that too. Delete that shadow as well. Make sure I'm not picking up anything. It's a little bit odd. And I'm basically editing at this point and just really going in and trying to make some modifications. Okay. And let's see if we can increase the stroke. Of this image, and then see if the stroke weight helps, which is not inside but outside that graphic. And basically what I'm doing here is I'm trying to see if I can like narrow the line out a little bit and make a few modifications if that's the case. Or I could even decide to maybe increase Mickey's outline a little bit, even though that might be a little dangerous. But I selected the black base and added a bit of a thicker outline, okay? And on those, it can be a little dangerous, but I think it's echoing a little bit better. And taking a little creative precedence to kind of get a little bit closer. And then I'm just kind of reconsidering if I want to even delete the pumpkin darker shadows even further. And based on what we're seeing, are we kind of echoing the art style a little bit better? How does this look to you guys? Is this looking a little bit similar in the styling? If you think yes, you can type in yes, or if you think no, you can type in no, and let me know what else can be modified. But how is this looking for improvement, or how is this looking for art style or art echo? I think for the most part, it's kind of looking a little bit better. But that's how we make a quick edit with echoing the art style, okay? Now, I hit you with a lot, okay? And I think I'm gonna hold off here so I can give everyone an opportunity just to kind of find some background elements and just kind of get to this stage, okay? We're not on t-shirts yet. We're not on composition or layout. All we're doing is looking for some background images and trying to modify those images in Illustrator so that we can echo the art style, okay? So that's the idea. At this point, is this too much to have to edit, or is this the amount of editing pretty standard? That is a good question. I would say that to modify this amount of time is probably standard, or maybe even a little bit less, depending on the average, right? Because if we're working backwards, we're modifying the artwork. But if we pre-planned it a little bit further, let's say I actually went back to Vecteezy and gave myself a little bit more of a stricter boundary, right? Let's say in Vecteezy, I said to myself, okay, this, as much as I love the image, it's not going to work for me. Absolutely not. You can even give yourself a stronger boundary in your search, if that makes sense. So I'll admit, I think I may have stretched it a little bit, but I'm a bit of a go-getter in that regard, because that's kind of like the idea when it comes to it for me, I would say. I would say if you can get as close to the original art style, that would save you time, right? On the average. But this exercise or those images, I kind of know how long I would take to make changes, and I kind of know based on past experience what it would take to make those changes, versus you guys that are kind of learning the ropes and learning for the first time. My suggestion is like try to find as much of a similar art style in the file to begin with, okay? And then have little editing after you download. Does that make sense? And that'll save you some time. So I think that's probably another way you can approach it as well, because we can do it that way, or we can edit in a completely different way. Like for example, I just kind of landed on this one, Vecteezy, and the background and the sun looks relatively flat, similar to Mickey, I would say. And so does that little witch character. This image probably is closer to the Mickey graphic, stylistically, minus that background. But that's a simple download, one click of a background, delete, and you're set. And I can put a solid orange or the t-shirt color, basically, I can make into orange and use it as a replacement. Does that make sense? So it's all in the planning, but I would say, see if you can find something similar that you can plan for like that. Like this image, this is a really great example. And then that's an easier edit to which you can now get into layout and composition. What I did with the ghost is a little bit more advanced, and I made a few modifications here and there with the direct selection tool, and that made more sense too, to go that direction. But know your range, know your boundary, know your limit, and it'll be try a few downloads, and I'll be here to answer any questions that you might have for that. Okay. I think the last thing I'll say is definitely be on the lookout for groupings. And what I mean by that is I'll try to download this image and see if it does it for you. Oh, subscriptions. No, I don't want to do subscriptions. It's probably trying to charge me. But basically, I'll use the ghost image as an example. But sometimes when you download a particular image, they could come and open it in Adobe Illustrator. They could be grouped. And by group, that means, okay. And by groupings, it means that it looks, when you click onto it, the whole thing is grouped together as one. And you're like, wait a minute, I can't edit it. What's going on? The answer is that you have to either right click and ungroup it here in the center multiple times, so that you ungroup one character, right click, ungroup another character, highlight another character, and right click, ungroup that other character. So you might have to ungroup multiple times to unlock it. And a grouping is basically when I select something and I group it. Grouping is a fancy word for those shapes are like glued together, so to speak. So think of grouping as gluing the pieces that I selected into one group, or like a folder, I guess you can also look at it as. And it's basically allowing you to like click onto one image, clicking onto everything else that's included in that image, if that makes sense. Okay. So, but I'll be here for any questions, issues, or concerns that you might have. But I want to definitely give you guys a few minutes and push it to that next level, and so that we can start looking for some images there. Okay. So If that works for you guys, you give me a little thumbs up emoji, but I wanted to give you a little next step because I know we're ahead of the game. That's cool. So I want to give you guys some time to explore, pick a theme. You don't have to do it on Halloween. It could be any theme, fashion inspired. It could be 80s. It could be the 80s. It could be the 90s, whatever you want, or you can trace out the image by hand if you found a really cool image that you want to build upon. It's all open for you there. Let me go ahead and do this right now because that Vecteezy link is not the right link. It's a double up of the other site. So I'm going to go ahead and take a quick second to make a modification to Vecteezy, and that way it doesn't throw anyone off as you're making the edits. So let's go ahead and make a few modifications there. And where's that lovely link? Here it is. Okay, let's scroll down. Okay, link options. Yeah, look at that. That's so interesting. I should not have done that. Okay, and we'll save that, and it should be an active link. And that should give us some flexibility. Okay, let's do a check-in. Let's say, let's check in about an hour from now, if that helps. So we can take a look at some of your backgrounds, see how everybody's doing, offer some support. And I'm gonna leave one of these screens open. Where are you, my lovely Keynote? And I'm going to leave that on screen here, which is the objective. Okay. And then we'll apply that way. So I'm going to leave that window open. I'm also going to open up a breakout room too, in case anyone has any specific questions or comments. I think that'll be helpful as well. Again, don't be surprised if you get pulled in for a check-in. So if you get sucked in, just let me, I'm just basically doing a quick check-in to see how your files are looking, how things are going, and answering any questions that you might have too, okay? All right, very, very cool. And we'll get you rocking and rolling there. So let's participant choose room, Professor Almena, 1-on-1. And that way you'll be all set, and we'll give it a time of about 120 minutes there. And we'll get you rocking and rolling. Okay, great. So if you feel like you want to join me in the breakout room, feel free, and I'll meet you over there too. I'll be hanging out there for a few minutes so that we can see where everybody's at for the most part. Okay. All right, guys. I'll see everybody in about an hour, and looking forward to seeing your backgrounds or possible t-shirt design developments as we go. Okay. All right, have fun. Okay. All right. Hey guys, so welcome back. Just wanted to kind of check in and see how everyone is doing. And I think we got mostly everyone back in, but anyone got some backgrounds, elements that maybe they'd like to share? If you do, you can give me a little thumbs up emoji. It might be 50-50. No? Okay. Okay, anyone still working on background elements or starting to? Just wanted to check in. Oh, okay. How many went? Okay, how are you working on that? Okay. Okay, so not quite ready to show. Is that what it's looking like pretty much? Okay. Oh, polishing up the Mickey there. Okay. So then I would say still working on finding the background images there. Okay. Okay, totally fine. You're more than welcome to experiment with more than one. So I use one as an example, okay, and that's totally fine. And we can, just to kind of give you there, or you could even be looking for ideas on the Trends 2021 shirt site as well. So there's even that as an option. So that could be a brainstorm session for you guys too. And maybe we can go over that as well in the breakout room if anyone wants, but we can use that as an option too. Okay, sounds good. So how many guys, but for the most part, I think everyone's done with the Mickey graphic. It's just like right now we're just looking on those backgrounds to set it up. Okay. Oh, the certain parts, James? Yeah, let me go ahead and answer that question. So if you're doing that arm, which is in Mickey's setup there, you're going to use a tool called the Pathfinder Tool. But I don't know if you drew that negative area of the white on his arm. I don't know if you did or not. But let's see if we can kind of retrieve that so we can talk about that a little bit. I kind of briefly brought it up. Let's see. I'm gonna see if I can retrieve. I'm gonna do a quick save here for just a second. Shirt separation. Okay, and then I'm gonna open up that graphic, which is pencil exercise part. No, not pencil exercise part 4. Ah, yes. Here we go. Let me get the file ready for you here, James. You're all set. Okay. Having a little bit of an issue sharing. So let's go back here. Okay, this is good. So let me go ahead and show you, James, and then okay, perfect. So I'm gonna be on the gray part of the screen so you can kind of see it. So you have this sort of space here, right, that you kind of traced, right? That is going to be its own like closed vector object, right? So you're basically going to take that shape that you're going to draw, right? It kind of looks like this roughly in the system. And then from here, you're going to have it within the Mickey graphic, right? When it's done. Now, you're going to do something called a pathfind. And let me move some of these tools out of the way so you can kind of see that. And basically for that, you'll need to go to your window menu and select Pathfinder. which sort of looks like this right next to Mickey's face, like the Pathfinder panel. And the Pathfinder panel is like a cookie cutter, so to speak, right? Where you can kind of punch through it. And we're gonna basically delete that white section by having it punch through Mickey. Now, the reason I'm on a gray background is because a white, with a white artboard, you're not gonna see it happen instantly. So if you want to change the white to a red, you'll notice it like instantly, basically. So if you want to take that white space there and change it to red, or over your white background, that's fine. I can do that too. So you can give it a color. You can use pink too for that, as well. So let me go ahead and move that over. But basically, now let's make it like a neon green for right now. So basically what you're going to do is that you're going to select that for you, I guess it's blue or green. And then I'm going to hold down the shift key and select Mickey as well. So I'm going to do a multi-selection, it's called. And I'm going to select both that green, or for you, the blue and the black outline. And then over here, there is I lose the panel every single time when I go to that mode. But basically, right under where it says shape modes, it says minus the, excuse me, not minus front. Right click, arrange, bring it to the front. Should technically be over it. Yeah. And what you're going to do is basically select that shape, select the outline of Mickey, and say minus front. And when you minus the front, it disappeared like it did for you. And when it disappears, that means that you have punched through that hole using that shape. And now Mickey is transparent through that background. So now that little space, rather than be a shape, is now a empty negative space, and everything else is a closed vector object. Does that kind of make sense a little bit? So that's how we kind of punch holes over other shapes, or set it up that way. So that's really, really helpful when you do it that way. So definitely some good stuff there. Cool. All right. I'm glad it was helpful. All right. Very, very cool. All right, guys. Well, let's keep it going. It sounds like we're going to be working mostly through the evening. So let's maybe take a vote, because we're technically a day ahead, right? Like we're well ahead of the game. So we could kind of conclude tonight, and then on Tuesday, we can have some background images ready to go, right? And have at least a single background image with an echoed art style, with your Mickey image or primary graphic. I think that might work and give everybody a little bit of time. You would have to kind of, I think that would be a majority of the class per se. And then for a few of you guys, you'll more than likely be finishing up your character. And if you have your character pretty much complete or almost done, or in development for Tuesday, I think we'll be okay too. Okay. So is that going to work for everybody? For some of us, I know like Precious, I know you're probably working a little bit longer on your primary character. I know a few folks are working primary there on their primary characters a little bit longer, but by Tuesday, we should have at least a completed character, for some doing more complex characters. And then for most of us that have Mickey, we should have some type of background, only one. If you have more, great. But at least one background sort of in development in the works, and then kind of showing some echoed styles and how you're getting there. Okay. If you have questions, that's normal. And you can save those questions for Tuesday, and then we can kind of break them down that way if that helps too. Okay. All right. It sounds like everyone's okay with working into the evening and then kind of having some stuff ready to show for Tuesday. Okay. All right, very, very cool. All right, guys. So before heading out, then let me go ahead and put that address out there for the Nixon. I think Alex, you are going to be heading out there. So I'll get you that information. So that's the Nixon building, actually. So that's what it's known as. There's a Nixon restaurant, and then there's a Nixon building, or the Nixon Plaza. So I'm going to put that address there. So our meetup tomorrow will be from 6 to 8 p.m. at the Nixon Plaza. So there's the address, 13002 Philadelphia Street. Okay. I'll be outside in the back, sort of garden space in the back there. So feel free to join. And then for the rest of the class, I'm thinking if there's anything else. If there's any questions, issues, concerns that you might have, feel free to email me. It goes directly to my cell phone, and then I'll pick up that information there too. Okay. Students that are behind on a couple of assignments, please make sure you check your emails. There's specific instructions on ways that you can catch up. Some of the very quick and easy ways is make sure to answer all the discussion posts, because 10 of those equals 100 points, and that's like almost a full project. And if there's certain things that you're missing, be sure to click onto the video links that were given to you. I specifically go to the chapter or the minute mark to where the how to do the assignment begins, and gives you step-by-step instructions. So all you really need is about 30 minutes to catch up or so. If you follow those specific videos, which are broken down into like 10, 8, and some even 20-minute increments, to save you time. Okay, so make sure to do that. Make sure to check that out. Make sure to get caught up if you can. Pretty much from here on in, I'm just trying to do 20, 30-minute lessons and give you guys up to 2 hours of lab time, just to put in enough to work the programs and have some time to catch up. Okay. So, so I am cutting out a few things here and there and videos just to give everybody a little bit of time to kind of develop and catch up and ask questions and have conversations with me if you have to. And I will open up a little bit of the floor time as soon as we're done in about 5 minutes if anyone needs to ask questions or talk about their assignments too. Okay. Cool. All right, guys. We will see you then. Have a good night. And then be ready with backgrounds and graphics on Tuesday. And we'll see some of you guys tomorrow night for the evening. And with Manny talking a little bit about his freelance design and some of his graphic art and what brings him to Whittier. I'll see you then. It should be fun. All right. Be safe, guys. Have a good night.